Station.
Have you ever seen your home planet get destroyed as you flee into the stars? All your loved ones killed in the blink of an eye. Feeling lonely? Wishing you weren't all alone, drifting in the vast emptiness called space? By chance coming across a deserted planet, helplessly searching for some remaining life. Good life, that is. Unfortunately, this planet isn't completely deserted as you once thought, and soon to find out that everything here is your enemy. You'll have to navigate this harsh, unforgiving new world for the survival of the human race. You must use your skill and ability to survive in this action-adventure RPG known as Autonomous. How far will you go? Only your determination will tell. Meet Otto, the hero of this story. And as Otto, you'll face many challenges and difficulties. You'll have to use your skill or stealth to outrun and outthink your enemies, otherwise risking inevitable death. To begin your journey as an explorer drone who was designed to be fully autonomous, but was never intended to be fully on his own, only to be an assisting drone to his crewmates. But as Otto, you are forced to explore the vast, uncharted planet you have crash landed on all alone due to unforeseen circumstances, facing harsh conditions from the extreme weather that could include sandstorms, acid rain, or the many enemies that plague this planet. The cyber-organic creatures left behind by the CRONOS on this planet are powered by a vicious liquid that can corrode most elements. While exploring, you may come across broken robots whose upgrades you can take, but you must choose wisely, as some of these upgrades can push Otto toward the CRONOS mindset and may cause corruption to his hardware. So you must always stay vigilant and ready to dodge larger foes while taking out smaller enemies and collect their parts to upgrade or repair Otto. The weather on this planet that Otto is on is mostly hot, dry, and sandy. During the daytime, you will encounter sandstorms that will slowly erode the armor plating protecting Otto from the elements. Seeking shelter is advised during these times. Being a mostly desert planet though, there is still a form of liquid on the ground, but it is acidic to organic life, but acts like a type of oil for the CRONOS. When it rains on the planet, that same liquid is what falls from the clouds, and when it mixes with the sand on the surface, it makes it harder for Otto to climb up rocks and cliffs, as well as any metal surfaces. Sit back and watch as Otto uses his many skills to evade and outsmart his enemies. Otto knows there's enemies in these ruins, and he knows he must outsmart them into using their final attack in an attempt to kill him. But Otto is always a step ahead, using his clones to force the enemy's attack and completely evading it. This forces the enemy to lose their strategic advantage and come down to the ground in search of where he might have gone. But Otto is always ready, striking from the shadows. He waits for the opportune time to deliver the final blow. With time and determination, you too will be able to use Otto to his fullest capabilities. And as the last remaining crew member, Otto must complete his mission for the survival of the human race. You must use Otto to terraform this new hostile planet and make it suitable for organic life, or escape and warn the others of its unknown dangers. Will you succeed, or will you become part of the CRONOS Uprising? The team decided to introduce and upgrade mechanics into the game, featuring workbenches and base building, with bonuses and penalties for each upgrade decision, where the player has freedom and flexibility to play their way. Robots have the ability to scan other robots and analyze their parts, therefore it was reasoned that a fun mechanic to introduce featuring actions performed in the footage was to have that Otto be able to pull off other robots' parts and upgrade himself. It was also reasoned that there might be two sides fighting each other, and one side upgrading upgradings produce a different effect from the other side's upgrades. This feature also lends itself extremely well for game-based balancing purposes. It was also a reason that a workbench and base building might be a fun addition in, and these mechanics are featured in a top-selling game on Steam called Valheim and lend themselves to the upgrading mechanic. While the players at their base, we want to give them the option to not only store their goods but also dismantle it so they can gain more resources that they wouldn't normally gain out and about. The gear does come in tier lists that allows you to break higher level gear to gain more loot and rare mods that you might not find off just any monster you come across. This also gives the player their choice of leveling up certain gear depending on what kind of mods they use, so choose wisely as sometimes they might not come off. One mechanic we like to give Otto is his ability to scan his environments to better orient himself with his surroundings. This scan lets him observe points of interest that leads to puzzles the player must solve to either proceed with the story or to dive deeper in exploration to locate valuable items or treasures. This scan helps him uncover the history of this planet and can be used for stealth operations, being able to see enemy footsteps or biometrics through walls to better gauge the situation. He can even mark the enemies he sees to track their movements while not in scan mode. Using this mechanic, he can mean the difference between coming out on top or facing a brutal defeat. Scan mode also utilizes the fullest extent of the camera, allowing you to switch between first and third person to better orient yourself with your environment, or take a closer look at items to better understand the situation. Most might use this to peek around corners or to get a better scope of distant objects by zooming in and out. We as a team decided to give Otto this mechanic to not only be able to use in his adventures, but gives him a strategic advantage for how he wants to engage in his environment. This allows him to build his own personalized attack plan on whether he wants to go in stealthily or guns blazing. To reiterate on the weather, we wanted to introduce 4 distinct weather systems, one being superheat, which would cause the environment around Otto to spontaneously combust into flames, forcing him to move more carefully while he's exploring. Secondly, we wanted to add sandstorms, so that way they would obstruct his vision and also hide potential enemies within the sandstorm, forcing Otto to be more careful when moving about. Thirdly, we wanted to add acid rain that would corrode his armor plating, forcing him to seek shelter. And last but not least, we wanted to add thunderstorms, which would cause devastating bolts of lightning to crash around Otto, forcing him to dodge and maneuver in the middle of fights, or forcing him to go different ways to completely avoid the storm altogether. We wanted to add these weather systems to cause more immersion for the player, allowing them to feel as if they were exploring a very barren and hostile planet. With these phenomenons, we wanted the player to have their choice on whether or not they wanted to push through them or to detour around. At the same time, they have to be careful when pushing through because they can incur debuffs, or they could use them to their advantage depending on the situation. To reiterate on this game's key components of being an action-adventure RPG, allowing the player to have freedom of customization of Otto and his ability to redesign the environment he is in, so that the environment is not lackluster. We wanted to give it girth and more in-depth feel so that way he can completely immerse himself within the surroundings of the weather system and also the terrain, so he can explore and find new interesting points that he may have missed during his previous explorations, while at the same time offering fast-paced action that he can choose on whether he wants to just go guns blazing or a more stealthy approach, so he can mark his enemies and pick correct pathing during his explorations. These we wanted to have Otto his complete player choice, allowing him to not only play the game he wants to, but to always remember that the fate of humanity rests in his hands, where he has to terraform this new hostile planet or gain the resources to leave and find a more suitable home for mankind.